ZIGZAG in One, a place where we honestly discuss how to embrace the zigs and the zags in our crazy lives. Running away is not an option. Living in defeat is not an option. Instead, learning how to keep moving forward is what we'll do together, one nugget of wisdom at a time. Your host is Melanie Brown. She's navigated a few zigs and zags in her life with the determination to never give up. Expect great stories and lots of laughs. Are you ready? Let's do it.
Welcome to this coronavirus special edition of the ZIGZAG in One podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Brown. When Dr. Christi Bartolomucci joined me for a two-part anxiety series just a week ago, neither of us had any idea about how fast our world would change, leaving children and families filled with fear. Honestly, we live in unprecedented times. Pandemic, school closures, social isolating, and hoarding are just a few of the words that run incessantly on our news and our social media feeds. I invited Dr. Christi to join me again to discuss ways to talk about the coronavirus with our kids to help reduce their fears. If you haven't listened to those two episodes, they're called Anxiety is a Bully and Our Kids with Anxiety. Please make time to do so during this next few weeks because they are rich with valuable information. Share them with your friends and family, as many of those people are filled with anxiety about the coronavirus. So welcome back, Dr. Christi.
Thanks so much for having me back.
So we're going to change things up today. All right, so we're going to each take part in facilitating the discussion. I'm going to ask you questions for a little bit, and then you're going to ask me some questions.
Great.
You okay with that?
Sure.
All right, let's get started then. So let's just start off with just a general anxiety or general advice, for talking with children about coronavirus. What would you say to children who have questions about the coronavirus?
Sure. Well, it is the topic that everyone is thinking about, hearing about, wondering about. So talking with our kids about it is so important, even if they're not speaking up and asking us questions. It's important that we do. I was thinking about this and how we want to really approach our kids. I'm thinking, what are some kind of global thoughts, and as parents, regardless of what age your children are, that you want to keep in mind? And I think number one is it's really our job as parents to stay calm.
Yes.
And it's hard because right now it can be difficult for parents to be staying calm because they're also facing their own fears about what this virus means for them, maybe what it means for their parents or elderly people in the community, as well as handling their kids. So that can be tough when you're already dealing with your own anxiety.
Yes.
To how to help your kids with theirs.
And I know from all of my years of teaching that we model and they see it. And even if our words are saying it's okay, everything is going to be okay, but they can see it in our face, those mixed messages, I know, can really confuse our kids.
Oh, absolutely. And our kids know us so well, and they know how to read us. And they sometimes better than we even realize ourselves some things that we're doing. So if we are frantic and running and watching the news constantly and talking about it constantly and hoarding things into our homes, they're watching that. So when we said, oh, it's okay, and we're trying to offer reassurance while at the same time being very stressed ourselves, they're not going to believe us because our words and our actions aren't matching. So we really want to help our kids see us in a way that's approaching this in a very calm, methodical way so that they will also feel reassured.
Exactly. I would agree with that. I know some individuals who are really struggling with this, and I can only imagine what our kids, especially what they might have heard at school before they left for our online learning.
Sure. It's funny, a few weeks ago, actually, I guess a few days ago, we were talking about anxiety as a bully, as you mentioned, and we were talking about what anxiety is like when there is a perceived danger or threat. But right now, there is a threat in our community that is being discussed. So this affects us in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
Because there is a real tangible thing. Kids are home from school because of it. They're having less play dates because of it. They're seeing more food come into the house because of it. So there is a reality that's in front of them that is not just a perceived reality. It's a reality.
And I'm sure the what if questions are off the chain.
They're flying.
I bet so. And it could really happen as opposed to like what we were talking about in the other episodes. So what if I don't get into a certain college? This is nothing like that. This is what if I get it and die like the person on TV?
Right. That's why it's so important that we have open conversations with our kids and we don't wait till they ask us questions, that we really open up the question. And it's good to see where kids are. So we want to ask them, so what have you heard about the coronavirus? What are the other kids saying about it? What scares you about it? So that lets us know whatever age our child, whatever age they may be or whatever fears that they may have, we can enter their world from their perspective.
I think that's a great place to start because sometimes I know as parents, we want to give more information than our kids are really ready for. So if we ask them, what do you know?
Right.
Then we know where they are. We know what they have heard, and we know what part, at least in my mind, we know what part we need to correct if it's incorrect information.
Right.
Or provide information that would reduce their fears.
Absolutely, because what we might be afraid of as a parent or an adult may be very different than what they're experiencing. So it lets us know not to flood them with information, flood them with too many facts, and just enter their world where they are, and then we can take it from there. It's really important that we hear them out as well. Sometimes as parents, it's easy to just offer reassurance. Oh, you're a kid. This is not going to affect you anyways. And while there may be some truth that it may not be as severe for kids, for them, it will feel like their concern or their fear is being invalidated. So it's really important to hear it all out, to hear their what if questions. You know, what if I get this? What if I spread it to all my friends? What if my friends can't come back to school? What if their grandparents get it? What if my grandparents get it? So we want to hear that all out and not just dismiss the fears, but really be able to talk through them. And what would we do? What would that look like? What steps would we need to take? And that leads me to the second point is in our calmness, then we can talk about what is being cautious. What do we do to be cautious and thoughtful and considerate in how we approach the coronavirus versus getting fearful and anxious about what we're doing. So there's a very big difference there. So when we're cautious, we think about we can really be helpers. We can help those around us. We can help our community by taking some steps. For instance, we can wash our hands. We could have a few less play dates, right? We can kind of stay more in our own homes or around people that we're always with. We can take those steps so that we really help our community by not kind of getting out there and spreading anything around. So that's a calm, cautious approach. This is what we can control. This is what we can do. So we want to focus on those things versus the global, really scary, huge things that we really have very little control over.
That is fantastic advice. I love that. How would you explain the mask and the gloves that some people are wearing to a kid? Because that has to feel very scary.
Oh, sure. You know, for kids, I think when they see masks and gloves, they might think of what's wrong with that person? What is that person dealing with? And what does that mean to me? Do they have something? Are they dangerous because that they're wearing those things? I think it's important to help kids understand that people wear those masks and the gloves to also protect themselves, that they might feel at risk or they might have something going on with their health or that they want to take that step to make sure that they stay safe, just like each of us can take steps to make sure that we cautiously, not in a way that becomes more paranoid, but that we can take steps that keep us safe. So that it's just a means of they're just doing that to help ensure that they are safe and that people around them stay safe rather than see them as a danger.
Okay, that's fantastic advice. What about all of this hand washing? I know I'm trying to be more aware of it for myself. I'm usually very, very good about it, but I'm trying to do a little bit more. I know some kids have obsessive, compulsive disorder about hand washing. How would that play into a scenario like the coronavirus?
Sure, that's a group I'm very concerned about right now.
Yeah.
The root of that is that there is an anxiety or a fear, and then the child can become really stuck on that, those thoughts get very sticky and tricky in their minds, and they can get obsessed with those thoughts. And then they'll do things like hand washing or other things that are called compulsions to reduce the anxiety. So they get into a cycle of an increased anxiety. I wash my hands, that anxiety goes away in the short term, and then I go round and round with that. That cycle is controlled by a fear and an anxiety. What we want to think about is, again, being thoughtful and cautious. We can wash our hands, but we might wash them before we're eating. We might wash them if we're outside, but there's a purpose for why we're washing our hands versus letting the anxiety be what dictates us washing our hands. I feel anxious, so I'm washing. So if you notice that your child is continually washing, that their hands are raw and red, you want to talk with them about that and really ask them what's going on. Are you doing that to help reduce your fear? What else, if you're feeling afraid, what else could you be doing? And one of the big things is maybe not touching your face as much or putting your fingers by your eyes or in your mouth or your nose, any of those fun areas that kids like to play with. And so that it's not just the hand washing, because they might be fixated on one thing that brings them a sense of perceived control over the situation, but it's actually the anxiety driving that's actually causing them a bit of harm, if they get to that point.
Yes. So I'm wondering about those kids who this is really upending them, this whole thing, and maybe they had anxiety before, maybe they didn't. But this coronavirus, what they've heard, what they don't understand, what is uncertain, has really upended them. When should the parents consider seeing a counselor?
Sure. First, as parents, the more available and open that you are to really hearing your child out and hearing those what-if questions, it will help you understand what seems to be an understandable, typical fear in the community that a lot of people are experiencing, to when you know as a parent that your child is really stuck on it. And that's stuck. So you want to look, are they stuck? Can they not fall asleep at night? Are they waking up talking about it? Are they needing tons of reassurance from you constantly? Does it seem like they're having a hard time playing or just engaging because it really is consuming their thoughts? That's when you know that it's going, that they don't feel like they're free to engage in their life. It's really interfering with their ability to participate in life. So that's when you know that it might be a bit of something else going on as well. Sometimes something else will happen and it will really start to highlight an ongoing anxiety or concern that you may have already actually had about your child, and this really has highlighted.
Excellent. That's great advice, because I know there are some parents out there that might be concerned about how this coronavirus is impacting their child.
Right. There are really fantastic strategies for children who do have obsessive compulsive tendencies that with germs and hand washing or touching. There's quite a list of compulsions that kids and adults can have that go along with things such as a diagnosis of OCD. And so those tools are so helpful. So if you do see that your child seems to be in that place and really seems to be in a pattern of needing to do those compulsions like hand washing, it's important to get them the tools that they could use to break that cycle.
Fantastic.
Okay. I've got lots of questions for you.
Uh-oh, lay it on me.
So as a parent myself and as a professional who gets to work with quite a few parents and kids, this is going to be an interesting time now that most kids are home from school.
Yes, it is.
And
there's no doubt.
Yes, and trying to navigate what this is going to look like with online classes and a lot more homeschooling, especially with having multiple children. So I know this is your area that you help kids with all the time. So how do we as parents go about this? And we have, they're at school 8 hours a day. Right?
Yes.
All kinds of subjects and activities. So how do you recommend as parents that we do this, how we break this up and how we help keep them focused so that we're all productive and don't end up really stressing each other out with
or
the
killing
school.
anyone
With the school part.
Great question. So first things first, an 8-hour school day is not 8 hours of instruction. I know some parents may not have gone to volunteer or may not have been in school recently, and that's something that you put your kids on the bus or you drop your kids off at the front door and you see them 8 hours later and you think that's a full school day. You got to remember there are announcements and there are bathroom breaks, there's lunch, there's snack breaks, there's recess time, there's electives or different classes that they take throughout the day that are not considered academic classes. So that probably gets you to about 6 to 6.5 hours of academic instruction. And I know from what all I've read online about the different school systems and the different private schools, they're not expecting parents to do 6 to 6.5 hours of instruction. Because you're not certified teachers. You're not. It's not that you're not smart, but you're just not trained to do that.
Right. That sounds like a really long time for a parent.
It is a long time.
Especially who have multiple children doing that that long of work, that much work.
Yes, exactly. So our elementary school age students probably doing online instruction maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours at the very, very max. Middle and high school students will probably be more, especially if they're in honors or AP classes.
Okay.
So the way to kind of break up this day is to create a schedule. And I know some people are really big about schedules and some people are just more fly by the seat of their pants. This is a time when we really need to schedule.
Great. I've been seeing some schedules float around.
Oh, good.
Just starting, but wanted to really hear what you would recommend.
Well, I would pick a time to start and kind of keep that consistently throughout this time that we're off. I'm a morning person. I would probably start 7:30, 8 o'clock. I wouldn't start too much later than 9 o'clock because the morning is when students are really the best. They've rested through the night, their brains are ready and fresh, and so this would be a good time to get started earlier in the morning than letting them sleep in till 11 or 12 or something like that.
That makes a lot of sense, and that would really help keep their school day mentality going.
Yes.
They're used to waking up and going to school and getting started, so that would bring also a sense of normalcy and control, I would imagine, to their days.
Exactly. So a class, you would normally do 50 to 60 minutes, in high school maybe 90 minutes. Well, that's a long time for them to sit there and not have their peers to interact with or their teacher to interact with. They're going to be having instruction online. They're going to be having worksheets or projects or essays to write. Probably set aside about 30 to 45 minutes of time that they need to sit in their seat and actually do the work. And then breaks. Breaks are very important, and I know some kids are going to want to take advantage of those breaks. We don't want to do that, but they are important to do that because they need time. Think about them going out in the hallway between classes and interacting with their peers. They're not going to get to do that.
Right.
But they need to be going on a short walk, or they need to go out to the basketball goal and shoot hoops. They need to walk the dog. They need to maybe do an art project for a few minutes, something to just unload for a few minutes, but then get back to it and do those blocks of time for 30 or 45 minutes until you get that portion of your day and all of those assignments finished.
Great. I'm thinking about the challenge of being organized with all of this work. And I'm thinking that can be a real challenge day to day for kids, even just with homework. And some parents too, we can also have a really hard time getting ourselves organized and structured like this. I'm just wondering, what advice do you have to help kids and parents to stay organized, to get all this completed?
Well, with all of my years of teaching and in my tutoring, one of the biggest things that I focus on is organization.
Oh, great.
And so being organized is really critical. It's the key to your success. And so one of the most important things that you need to start off with is finding your kid's agenda. And if they don't use it, I get that. So find something that they will use, and it could be a blank weekly calendar or even a sheet of notebook paper. And so each day at the beginning of the day, look at all of the information coming in from the teachers and log what you need to do for math, what you need to do for English, what you need to do for science, and so on. and put those down on that sheet. And yes, writing it out is very important because then as they do them, they get to mark them off.
That's my favorite part.
That is my favorite part too.
Cross it off the list.
Well, it puts a sense of encouragement that you have accomplished something. And accomplishing things is a big motivator.
Sure. You really see how productive that you're being.
Exactly. And so that is extremely important, is to get some sort of organizational tool. Use the agenda, use a weekly calendar, or even use a sheet of notebook paper. But every day, put those assignments down and get started on them. Start marking them off. So one of the other things that's really important is that they need to file those assignments when they have finished them. Let's say they do a math assignment. If they have a math notebook, they need to stick it in the math notebook because they are going to have to turn it in to those teachers at some point.
Yes.
And if it's all over the house or it's shoved in a backpack, when they get to school and they have to turn all this in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it is, it's going to be very difficult to make sure that they turn in everything that they have finished. And whatever they haven't finished turns into a 0.
Yeah, that would not be good. Especially
with, we don't know how long we're going to be out, and there may not be a lot of time to make up missed assignments.
Yes. I'm thinking this, I work with so many kids that are dealing with ADHD, and I'm thinking for most kids, this could be quite a challenge. And then you have children that really organizing and not feeling so overwhelmed by their schoolwork on a regular basis is already a challenge. So I'm thinking, especially for kids that do have any type of learning difference or ADHD, how important it's going to be to know your child and to really find a structure and a strategy that's working for them and keeping their belongings together.
Well, and you may have to do a little mama bear, papa bear type thing where you're spending more time with them, not teaching the assignment necessarily, but making sure they stay organized and that they are completing their assignments. And sometimes parents feel like that's enabling, and it can be. But in this circumstance, getting them started and making sure and maybe even checking back with them, show me that math assignment. Let's put it in your math notebook. Those things are going to help them in this very different learning environment.
Yes. And we see quite often that kids even do their work, but because they haven't had it in an organized place, they don't turn it in and they get those zeros. So I think, and that's so frustrating for the child who's actually done the work and the parent. So really staying organized and having that place really can't be emphasized enough in this situation.
And that's why I say that organization is really more than half the battle. If you can help your child be organized in this different learning situation, you are going to be less stressed, they are going to be less stressed, and when it comes time to turning in all of this work, if they're not submitting it online, which our elementary school kids probably won't be.
Yes.
Maybe some are, but maybe some aren't. But our middle and high school kids will probably be submitting it. And that's kind of nice because they can submit it as soon as they finish and they don't have to worry about keeping up with it.
That's the
so
great
that's
part.
A win right
there.
there.
That is a serious win. Technology definitely helps.
In that situation, technology is fantastic.
So now for younger kids, this probably isn't as much of a struggle, but a lot of parents are wondering, how am I going to help my child if they don't understand the material? Some of these, these high school math classes and sciences, can get a bit detailed. So what do you recommend for parents when their child's struggling with information and they don't understand and you as a parent aren't understanding the information either?
That's really a fantastic question because I tutor students who are in high school, and there have been occasions where they have had assignments that I thought, it's been a while. So one of the things that I do is, and these are the things that I do when I tutor students or I teach students, is first and foremost, try figuring it out together because you're modeling something, just like you're talking about how you model what you say in front of your kids about the coronavirus. When they come to you and say, I don't understand, and you immediately get upset, or why don't you understand, or we need to talk to your teacher, or whatever, those things are not helping your child. They need to see that you persevere and you don't give up when things are hard.
Right. That makes so much sense. I always think there's no problem too big for us to not figure out something or something that's going to work. And what a great way of joining together and thinking, let's dive in. Let's see what we can find online. Let's make sense of this together, and that they could see you in the process learning as well. And then we as parents learn some new information too.
Or be reminded of stuff that we haven't seen in many, many years.
Yes.
In this case, Google really is your friend.
Yes.
Because you can find just about anything and teach yourself.
Right.
And so if what you have been given by the teacher, whether it's a video or a website about a topic, for example, let's say that your child had to write a paragraph on the 3 main causes of World War II. And you were like, ooh, I hated history in school and I don't really want to do this. Type those very words into Google. Type in 3 main causes of World War II.
And it'll all be there.
And it will just pop up just like that, and you will be amazed at how much information. Now, don't let Google do all the work for you.
Yes.
But at the same time, as you said, you can do it together. You can sit down together and you can say, oh, I don't remember that. And you can learn together. So Google is a fantastic resource in that case. There are other resources that are just as fantastic. A lot of parents know about Khan Academy.
Yes.
Khan Academy. It is excellent. It has lessons, it has videos, and it's not just math, which is what most people think Khan Academy is. It's all kinds of subjects. And there are hundreds of lessons, I would say more than hundreds, thousands of lessons on all kinds of topics. You just go on Khan Academy, you type in your topic, and it will pull up videos, lessons, questions. It's fantastic.
Great. What great resources.
Now, another one that some people might not have thought of is YouTube.
Oh, the kids love YouTube.
Yes, but we're not watching music videos.
So much information on YouTube.
There really are. And teachers have actually published videos of them teaching lessons.
Great. Positive use of YouTube. This will be
Yes,
good.
yes,
This will be very good.
Now, if you've exhausted all of those resources, reach out to your teacher.
Yes.
But they don't want you coming to them right off the bat. They really don't.
Right. They want to see the kids working and striving for the information and learning. And I think that's when the material really sticks with you, when you have to work with it a bit and you have to go after it. It helps keep that information in your mind. And one of the things I'm kind of excited about, especially for the older kids, is I've always thought about the more that you learn and that you can teach someone else about the material, the more you really know it and understand it.
I use that strategy with my students all the time, and they're very amazed when we finish and they say, wow, that really did help.
Yes.
And it really does.
Yeah, the best way of learning, right? To be able to talk about it and to teach someone else, and that really solidifies the information in our own minds.
Yes. One of the things that I want to make sure that I stress, and I know you would agree, is it is so important for us to encourage our kids during this time.
Yes.
They feel vulnerable. They feel life is overwhelming. And especially with school, I know that many of them have never done anything like this, and they don't know what it's going to look like. They're missing their friends. They're missing their teachers, whether they admit that or not.
Right.
But we need to give them lots of encouragement. So, for example, if they've had a good day of working and they haven't tried to get up 50,000 times to go to the bathroom or go check this or check that, give them praise. Because I think it's so important that we make sure that they are recognized for the fact that they are handling a very difficult situation, something that in my lifetime I have never seen.
Right. It really is an opportunity for parents and their kids to come together, whether it's about the academics or whether it's about their fears, their feelings, their relationships, in all these different areas. If we can be open and available as parents, if we can engage in the conversations, if we can ask the questions, it really is an opportunity during this period of separating that we can actually really come together.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm really hoping for, some time to really have more connection through meaningful conversations, but all different types of topics.
Excellent. Dr. Christi, thank you for making time to do this.
Thanks so much for having me.
And I so appreciate your knowledge and experience because it is extremely helpful to me as a parent. And I know that there are parents out there that feel ill-equipped and they don't know how to help their kid, and they desperately want to. So I know that this information will be very, very helpful to them.
And I thank you for all of yours. I feel better equipped myself to tackle on this homeschooling this week with my boys.
Well, you know where to find me if your house implodes. So listeners, thank you for joining us for this special edition. May I ask you to share this episode with your parent friends? You don't know, but their child may be paralyzed with fear about the coronavirus, and they don't know how to help. And if they haven't or aren't homeschooling their children, they may feel overwhelmed about making sure their children complete their assignments. So this is an important episode to share with as many people as you can. Now, I recorded a podcast episode with two of my friends about 2 weeks ago before all of the coronavirus went crazy. And it is about positive attitudes during challenging times and how that is life-giving and how positivity brings light to the world. And I'll be sharing that on the next episode of the Zigzag in One podcast. Until next time, keep moving forward.